This is 6 Mantras of a Tenacious Marketer and these incredible, what we call challenger brands. And the humans behind those brands are the tenacious marketers. What we have found in running agency life here as an advertising agency at door number 3 is the conversations we have every day are with leaders like you who are responsible for the future of their brand, of a large brand that has national, international ambitions, your name on the line, it's your reputation on the line, for seeing those results and for managing that ad spend accordingly. And there's a lot wrapped up into that. But today we're excited to talk to you about these 6 mantras, if you will, of a tenacious marketer. Let's dive in, Prentice. We're going to talk about 6 mantras of a tenacious marketer. And I'd love for you to walk us through the first one and let's get started there.
6 mantras of a tenacious marketer. So these are things that we have absolutely noticed as we've worked with really, really smart marketers throughout the years, having done it for decades and just having the privilege of sitting around the table with these folks. And so we really wanted to figure out how do we distill it down for you? What are the 6 things that we see? And one of them is, like, I'm going to use a few sports analogies on this, but they get back in the ring. They get knocked down. They get back up, and they really just hit after hit. And I think that that's an unavoidable reality of being in the marketing capacity. You're going to get knocked down, but show back up. And I think that seeing these limits and setbacks as opportunities and having really short-term memory. I look at, and I'm going back to sports, but I think about quarterbacks I've loved watching over the years, like Brett Favre or Tom Brady. These guys get sacked over and over by 300 plus linemen and get just pummeled to the ground. And they have to get up and go to the next play, and they have to completely compartmentalize what just happened and just look forward. It's not about ignoring it, not learning from it, but there's an art to letting go and moving forward. And I think that's huge. So that's
Absolutely.
one.
Love that.
Number 1, get back in the ring. Number 2 is they compete every day. And what I mean by that is they show up to win. No matter the size of the opponent, they're going to be out-muscled. They're going to be outspent. They're going to be out-resourced. I mean, really, that's kind of the norm today. But that's okay. They compete. So they find beauty in constraints. They see these limitations as really liberating. And that sounds strange, but knowing the size of the sandbox is really powerful. I think when you have an open-ended, you have all the resources in the world, do whatever you want, that's almost more paralyzing. So I really appreciate these marketers that can say, okay, this is the photography budget. Great. That's what we're going to do. We know what we can do. We know what we can't do. Having a fence line to push up against, knowing the limits, knowing where the boundaries are is really, really liberating. And you may not be able to do an activation at South by Southwest because it's too expensive or something, or Coachella, but you can come up with something that's unique to your brand and really special and will resonate with your target audience, your true advocate. So I just think that's the beauty of it is constraints are okay. Having some boundaries are okay, but being able to compete and show up and know that you can still win even if you are out-resourced, because that's just going to be the reality. That's number 2. Number 3 is they take calculated risks. So they make bold investments. And sometimes that's as simple as reserving budget and setting it aside to be able to do some smart things in real time based on what the market or culture is telling them. It may be that there's something going on in pop culture where we could put a billboard outside of the headquarters of that company and get some earned PR. You know, there's a lot of things that you can do where it may not be so much of a chunk of your budget or resources that it's scary, but it's enough to take a really smart calculated risk and say, we're going to move our chess piece across the board with this. And so I think this idea of taking calculated risks is something that we see in the marketers that are really the most tenacious. Number 4, they really push the limits and break convention. And what I mean by that is they kind of show up to change the game. They are emboldened by some kind of belief that something needs to change. Something in their industry needs to change. Something in the way that people do business has to change. And it could be about reducing friction. It could be about saving people time. It could be really anything big or small. If you think about companies that are extremely good at this, I mean, we could go like to Tom's Shoes, right? Which has that 1-for-1 model. You buy a pair of shoes, someone in a developing country gets a pair of shoes. So that's like the extreme of breaking convention, showing up to change the entire game. I know not every company is like that. Not everybody has the 1-for-1 model. So you kind of go, well, how does that apply to my brand? I think pushing the limits and breaking convention, having this emboldened belief is going to apply to really any challenger that is looking to disrupt, looking to steal market share. I'll give you an example. I'll try to bring it down to something tangible and maybe even something a little boring. We worked and helped a company here in Austin, which is called a Finetech, which you may or may not heard of. They're one of the largest payment processing companies in the country. And so payment processing, if you think of like professional services and you're an attorney and you need to get paid, you need a payment processing platform so you can get paid. You're not chasing people for payments. It's just less paperwork. It's all automated. And they came to us, and when we were working with them, it was a messaging problem. Getting lawyers paid faster was not very inspiring. That's just not very inspiring. Yet they knew they were doing something really special. And after a lot of work and getting to the right positioning with them, really it was allowing lawyers to be lawyers again. They went to law school and they came out so they could be lawyers. They didn't come out to do payment processing and payroll and chase down payments. So really creating a positioning that unburdened them from the tasks they loathe so they could focus on the craft that they love. And so if you think about payment, even in payment processing, that company is emboldened by this belief that they are doing that for people. They are liberating them. And so I think that whatever it is, whether it's fintech like that, or whether it's apparel or any category, these brands, these marketers are pushing the limits and convention. Number 5, they command attention. So they have a bold, clear voice and they use it. And I think what to say about that specifically is there's just no wasted opportunity. They realize that they haven't earned the right to be boring because they're just out there so many places. They have specific places where they show up and where they need to show up with voice, with purpose, with values that represent who they are, that align with what the customer wants. So whether that's deepening the relationship, reinforcing a message, making somebody feel good. If you think about that, that could be on packaging. That could be a divider slide on a PowerPoint. It could be, there are brands that do really well on a post-purchase email. So you buy something and then you get an email that makes you feel good about the decision. Do they have to do that? No, you already spent the money. But what it does is it reinforces a relationship with the brand. I know we use, for example, Gusto, which is a payroll platform. It's a software. And when we get paid, this little piggy, goes across the screen, like little celebratory balloons and confetti come out. And it's like, it's payday. So they kind of gamify it. They make you feel good. But I just think that that is an example of what could be very boring payroll processing, but they make the brand fun. They make it likable. They make you want to spend a little time with it. So I think commanding attention, having a bold voice. Bold does not have to mean polarizing. It doesn't have to mean crazy or confrontational. It's just clear. It's consistent. So they command attention that way. And then Bethany, number 6 is they inspire change. That's a big one, but it can show up big or small. Really doesn't matter, but they're compelled by more than just money. So really being able to take the long view and saying that it's not just transactional. What we're doing here is transformative, and it's about a human connection. It's about providing utility, being helpful, really adding value to the world beyond the transaction. And I think that shows up with these marketers in the meetings you have with them, the way they treat people, the way they treat customers, and just the way they go about their day and do their work. So that'd be the 6th one.
Love that. I would love to know, in your leadership of your business, of door number 3, and throughout the years, which one of these 6 has been the most natural, that's kind of been a quality that you already had innately, and then maybe one that you've had to work at and it's taken some intentionality?
The challenge for me over the years, and that has taken a lot of work, is this notion of compartmentalizing and moving on and not dwelling in something that happened, whether that's a mistake or something that was not optimal. Mm-hmm. So I think being able to take a hit and get back up, it's like the ninja that pops back up, and I think that that's insanely helpful if you can get better at it. I've worked hard to get better at it, compartmentalizing things and just focusing on the present, what we can do now. So that's one I've certainly had to work on. I feel like the one that maybe was a little more natural for me personally was just being motivated by something bigger, some kind of change that's bigger than the transaction, bigger than money. It's just not very inspiring to get up every day and just chase money and think about the client making a payment. I mean, that's all part of it, but we really just have created and cultivated something really special at the company that is bigger than me, but it's something I believe in strongly, which is it's not about the transaction. That's one that I will always hold on to.
That's honest. Thank you. I'm sure people listening can relate to that for sure. And I would love to also ask for your answer on the question of how would you encourage someone who is a tenacious marketer that finds themselves on a team right now or at a business that they feel like they're looking around and that same tenacity or that same vision is not shared among their team yet, how would you encourage them to keep leading, even though they're feeling like a lone ranger right now and kind of driving a vision forward solo for the moment?
That's great. I think we've all been there in some way, some version of what you've just described. But I think a couple things. One is like, what can you change and what you can't? What can't you change?
Yeah.
And I think I'll start with what you can't. And I think you cannot change completely people or leadership that are ultimately going to either champion or not champion what you're driving towards. So I think at the end of the day, if you look to leadership or you look to who's the boss and they don't support it or you can't get them there, then that's always going to be an uphill battle. And I think that that's probably not one worth fighting, because your talents and superpowers are better applied in an environment where that is welcomed and you get a big bear hug for doing it rather than always butting heads. So, I mean, we've all been there in some kind of way. And I think that's something you got to recognize. But short of that, if you're in an environment where it's just, you need to be the change agent, I think it's really about persistence and showing people the way. People have fear. That's the biggest thing. People have fear. They have, are we going to look silly? Are we going to lose money? So it's overcoming those things. And sometimes it's just crawl, walk, run. What can we do right now to get some wins to show that it's worth the next step to keep moving forward? So I think that that's all available to us. It's just, we got to bring people along and be that inspirational change agent.
Yeah, it's true. And as I said at the beginning, we talk a lot about challenger brands and this big kind of meta sometimes ideas. But the goal today for this episode is to talk to the human behind the challenger brand and the tenacious marketer. So that quality of they inspire change. Yes, the brand itself has a big vision to inspire change, but you as a leader and the influence you have on your team, you're compelled to inspire change as well. And a lot of times that requires you acting before there's evidence of the impact around you. So keep it up. Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching today. This show is intended for you, again, to feel inspired on your journey, to have some practical guidance, practical wisdom from other leaders like you who are in the game. And so today we hope you feel inspired and hope you feel re-energized to just keep on doing awesome work.